Hello everybody. It is Tuesday the 17th of June and I want to talk about the black cube and the artificial matrix. Trying to really make sense of what we are and what we are in and what is actually happening. Trying to create some order in all these stories that are around us, and to see if we can make all these bits and pieces into one coherent story, because at the moment they're not. It is chaos at the moment, so try to create some order in the chaos that is out there. So I've been watching this video for a few days now. I've been watching it over and over, and I think I will continue for a little while longer to see what else I can see in there. And it was the black cube Saturn. Like Saturn is the black cube. Saturn and the black cube are one and the same thing. And I don't think they are. The occultists, those that have knowledge of the unknown, of really the realms outside of the sphere, they see the black cube. And the way it's been told is like it is just symbolic of Saturn. And I don't think it is. They are two distinct different things, Saturn and the cube. I want to talk about this here. Now I will leave the link to that video in the description box if you want to watch it yourself. Again, the way to watch these things is don't swallow it down whole as enlightened knowledge, as the only truth. If there's something in the video that creates questions in you, then please go and ask those questions, because I most certainly have done. Because that is the way to the truth. To look at your doubts, ask questions, and see what's been said there is actually the whole truth. I don't think it is. Anyway, so we talk about Saturn first, and this Earth, the matrix in which we live, in which we know ourselves, in which we experience our life. Now, in order to create something out of all, because all cannot be known, every ancient teaching will tell you that. To be in all is going into insanity, where there's no more structure, where everything is possible, it leads to insanity. So to create a space in which you can have life, experience yourself, it needs to be a restriction from all. Creation is something. All is all, and creation is something specific. So you need to have a restriction in all to have something, and you can only live in something. So Earth is something, it's not all. It is a restriction. But it is there so you can experience yourself without going insane. So there needs to be a restraining force. Now, what influences this world, causes the restrictions, it seems to be Saturn. When we say what creates life on Earth, and we're looking at the sun, or I have been looking at the sun, obviously, which is an obvious, it does influence life on Earth, obviously. But maybe I have not been looking enough at the influences of the planets that emit frequencies that influence life on Earth. So the influence of Saturn on Earth, the frequency that it emits, is a restraining frequency. It is something that keeps us down. Again, people would say it creates a prison. You are imprisoned because of that. Or you're just being kept down so that you are not flying off into lunacy. That restriction is there to serve you, to keep you on the narrow path. And the restrictions that are admitted, the frequency emitted by Saturn to this earth, is there because it would serve all. And that is a very important point. Whatever is done, whatever way we are being influenced, is done to serve all. All shall have life. Man is not the only thing in this world. There are 4 kingdoms. There's the mineral, the vegetative, the animal, and man. All part of the same world, all part of the same web of life, and whatever is done to restrict or expand, and both happens, the influence of Saturn on this world is not always the same. Sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's less strong. But it is done in a way to keep the balance of all, so that not one part flies off and does whatever, and thereby becoming destructive to everything else. In a way, yes, you are being restrained, but it is there for your own benefit and for the benefit of everything else it gives. Yeah, it is there to do good. The restraint is there to do good, not to imprison you. And again, we should have self-restraint. We should accept those restraints to become a functioning part of a web. There needs to be self-restraint. So, I mean, it is done from somewhere else. I would say it's coming from Saturn. That may have been a knowledge that is truth. But to accept that restraint and know that it is good, that it aids you, that it keeps your feet on terra firma, not flying off into chaos. Because outside of the structure is chaos. So that might be then the natural influence on this world. The natural way that is done by the sun and by the spheres that between them create this matrix. And yeah, with the intention that all shall live. For all. Now, as I said, the occultists are talking about the black cube. And I had watched that video, I think, a few times before the obvious actually came to me. You know, that which is right in front of your nose, which is quite often the hardest thing to see. And that is, they were talking about the black cube represents Saturn. The black cube is Saturn. The black cube is the restraining force of Saturn. And then the obvious thing is Saturn is not a cube. It's a sphere. A sphere with rings. We are not in a cube or on a cube. We're on a sphere. So no, the cube is not Saturn. It's a completely different shape. I mean, even from the form itself. You see the form first, and the form itself tells truth. And Saturn is not a black cube. So there is something else there. But I think that it is emitting frequencies like Saturn, restraining frequencies or expanding frequencies. expansion really being achieved when the restraining force is not there. You switch it off, it causes an expansion. You switch it on again, it will cause the restriction again. And I would say something artificial. Because again, the cube with its 90-degree angles and precise sides measurements, nature is usually not that precise. It's more flowing. It is definitely more flowing in its forms. So to me, when I see a precise cube, to me that does not scream nature. It really doesn't. I would say technology, yes, absolutely, but not nature. So then there might be something there that emits a frequency, an unnatural frequency, an artificial frequency. That does the same thing as Saturn. It mimics Saturn. It mimics Saturn, but it is not Saturn. And I would say the way the frequencies are emitted, the way it influences man, is not done with the same intention as the spheres and the sun, the natural influences. As I said, the natural influences are there to serve all. What's coming from the cube is to serve God. One, or the few. Right, now in the video again, they were trying to, first of all, make the cube into something natural, which it is not, or saying it is Saturn, which I would say it's not. It's something distinctly different. They were trying to tie it to cultures that were before Egypt, for instance. Now, I cannot see the cube in Egypt in a big way. I mean, if you can see it, please leave it in the description box, but in the comments, I cannot see it. When I look at Egypt, I see the pyramid, most notably. I cannot see the cube in a big way. Where I can see the cube is in the Abrahamic religions. Absolutely, that's where the cube is. You have the Kaaba in Mecca for the Muslims, the black cube. You have the Teflin for the Jews, the little leather box cube that the Jews tie to their forehead, a sign on their forehead to cover up their third eye. Yeah, there is the black cube. You can see it in Christianity, you can see it in the story in the book of the Revelation when God himself will come to earth in a cube. There is the cube. And again, it's not Saturn coming to earth, hopefully. Yeah. It is a distinct black cube, a distinct cube that's coming. So there it is. There's the cube. And those that are influenced by the law of the cube, God give us, God take us away, and then God is the being in the cube. I can see it in this world right now. I think what is happening is the restraints, the frequency, the restraining frequency, the low frequency is being lifted. And those that are in the Abrahamic religions are going nuts. Those that are under the influence of that cube are being unleashed. No more restraints. Do as thou wilt is now the only law. That's Crawley. But it is basically that. there are no more restraints. And you're seeing the outcome. They are not restrained, they are being, plus they are being given orders and they're not thinking for themselves anymore anyway. And they're doing things that are not human, that are not natural. That is not natural. That is man being influenced not by nature, but by something else. Those that are under the influence of the cube. Saturn is the natural order. The cube is the artificial matrix. Those that are under the influence of the artificial matrix. How did they get there? By seeking, again, detaching. And here's the way. And you've been told the way. Detaching from the natural order. Detaching from the natural bonds between us, between nature. Detaching from the natural influences, which would be the planets. Detaching, getting out of this matrix and tuning in to a different frequency. That is what they have been doing. They are tuned in to the frequency of the cube and no longer to the natural frequencies. They are living in a different matrix inside of this natural matrix, in an artificial matrix. And again, who does it serve? The restraining, the letting loose, who does it serve? Not all, not nature, not man even. Most of man. Most of man are having the houses blown apart. It doesn't serve them. But it serves something else. So I really think we need to make the distinction to see that we're talking about two different things. When we're talking about the cube and when we're talking about Saturn, we're talking about two different things. One is the law of the matrix of this world, the natural matrix. The other is artificial, built by a god, something that wants to rule over this world. And maybe at this point I want to bring in Psalm 82 again. How long will you accept the rule of the wicked? How long will you accept the rule, the influence of the cube? They, that talking about us, they do not know. They wander on in darkness. We are in ignorance. We do not understand what the hell is going on around us. All the foundations of the world are out of course. Everything is going haywire. I mean, not just us. We are going nuts inside of the web, and the effect of that is rippling through the entire web, right down to the mineral, which is going nuts at the moment. That is because we are out of course, but we are connected with everything else, and we are again influencing everything else, having an effect on everything else, and that is an effect beyond the physical. This is spiritual. This is energy and vibration. We are the cause. We are the creators of this. Greg Braden had this model, again it was a cube, but of a matrix, yeah? And it was very interesting, you should see that. There's a change in the matrix, and then the change ripples through the entire matrix until the whole thing is stable again. Yeah? So it's not like there is no change on earth, that we are completely trapped, that there's no change. I want to come to this in a minute. There is changes, but the changes are gradual. The changes are slow, because every set time a change ripples through the matrix, it has to stabilize again, so that all shall live. Yeah, and if you want to shift like a tectonic plate, you can do that with one massive earthquake, which will be utterly destructive to everything around. Or you can shift a tectonic plate by thousands and millions of little microquakes, and that is the way of this world. Microquakes. Small shifts and then restoring balance again. Going slowly so that everything here can keep up with the change. Because all shall live. That is the way of this world. So change is allowed, but it has to be gradual. Which again, the shifts, and I mean, you can see the same principle in yourself and in what is happening at the moment. Yeah? Because we're being hit by change, left, right, and center. And we're always trying to rebalance ourselves, take in the new information, incorporate it with everything else, and create some sort of balance again. Which at the moment, the hits just keep coming. And we are getting more and more off balance, even within ourselves. We can't keep up. That is not the way this world would do it. Because that is destructive. Now, there was something, again, but that is the way of the cube. Because it doesn't actually care what destruction it creates, as long as its will is being done. As it gets what it wants, it rules over, it is in control to help those that they are in control over. It doesn't care. Because it is just my will. My will is above everything else. And to hell with the consequences. That is exactly the thinking of the cube. To hell with the consequences. Anything is possible. I am all there ever was and ever will be, and my will shall be done. It's not the thinking of the natural order. Absolutely not. It is very much aware of consequences, and it cares. It cares. Right. I want to read a bit, which is really a transcript of what has been said in the video. I want to talk about a couple of points here. Just want to read this first. So Romans named Cronus Saturn, so it was Cronus in the Greek, and then it became Saturn, but retained much of the same mythos. To the Romans, Saturn ruled over the Golden Age, a paradisical era of peace, prosperity and simplicity, before the corruption of man and the rise of Jupiter's rule. Again, I don't think it's Jupiter, because that's a sphere as well, last time I looked. Anyway, and the rise of Jupiter's rule. This Saturnian golden age was not necessarily joyful in the modern sense. It was marked by order, structure, and a kind of timeless stasis. There were no wars, no hunger, no chaos, but neither was there progress or spiritual awakening. The golden age was an age of stability, but also of dormancy. Some esoteric thinkers argue that Saturn's age was perfect only in form, not in spirit. It was a dreamless sleep of humanity, a kind of cosmic childhood that had to be ended so that the soul could begin its journey through chaos, suffering, and eventually toward enlightenment. Right, so that's their thinking. And again, that is Sabbatean thinking. Yeah, out of great chaos will come great enlightenment. You must go through chaos. But the one thing that really got me here was, well, first of all, there was no hunger, no wars, no chaos, but neither was there progress. So again, you're looking, the way actually like civilized people would look at indigenous people, okay, there's no hunger, but they don't build great buildings. Yeah, they have this peaceful existence, but they're building nothing. They have no money, they have no gold, they have no riches, they know nothing. How stupid are they living in peace in that way? Peace amongst themselves and in peace with the environment. Like that is a lower form of consciousness. Whereas the chaos is the higher form of consciousness. The destructive chaos is the higher form of consciousness. Hello? I would say those that live in the web, those that are in balance with everything else, have the highest level of consciousness. And if you are, I would say, in that state, maybe there is no need. You would not feel the need for technology, great buildings, riches, and whatever. Your cup would be full. How is that a lesser state of consciousness? And where does the chaos take you? I'll come to that in a minute. Does it actually take you to a higher state? But the other thing that really got me was there was no progress or spiritual awakening. Like they were not spiritual. I would say they were highly spiritual. I'm looking at the old indigenous tribes. I would say very markedly to me the Aborigines of Australia. I would say they were highly spiritual. They were probably more spiritual than they were materialistic. And they were spiritually connected to each other, to the world around them, to their past. They actually knew who they were and where they had come from. They knew they were still connected to their past and connected to everything else around them. That is a kind of spirituality, and that is where you choose what you're being connected to that which is around you, because everything is consciousness. When they say spirituality or occult knowledge, they are talking about knowledge that is out there as being the only true spiritual knowledge. Again, you seek out there in the realm of chaos, outside of the order of this world, and you connect something in the realm of chaos, and then that is the greater knowledge, because in this world there is nothing. We are nothing. Stability is nothing. Peace is nothing. Submitting yourself to being part of a web is being imprisoned. It is only out there where your will be done is the higher form of consciousness. And I would say again, back to front, upside down. Up is down, and you're calling good bad and bad good. Wrong way around. So, no, they were spiritual. They were absolutely spiritual. They were just not seeking something outside of this world. But they were spiritually connected to this world. So, okay, let's say we have to go through chaos to come to enlightenment. We have to go through suffering. What is causing the suffering? The suffering is caused by us going up against the natural order. The suffering is being caused by us creating chaos. We are the creators of this chaos. We are creating our own suffering. Again, we've been told you are imprisoned in this, you must get out and look at the cube. That is another prison, that is another order, and it is not an order that is there to serve all, but to only serve the few. You're going from one structure into another. Yeah, you're not going into the freedom of all, which cannot be known anyway. And you're not going into the better structure. But okay, let's say we have to do that. We have to go into chaos. We have to go through suffering to see the light. And I think the only light that we see is that we already had it. We moved away from it. Here, go into chaos, go into disorder, go deeper into the darkness. If you are on a path and it gets darker and darker, that means the light is behind you. You're moving away from it. The source of light is behind you. And you're moving away. So then, if you go through all of this chaos to find enlightenment, then the only way to me that can happen is if this thing is actually spherical or a circle. Yeah? You are on the point of light, you're moving away from it, and then if you've gone through a lot of chaos and darkness, you should come back to the point that you had in the first place. That is the light. It's the light of this world. It is the structure and the order of this world, and us restraining ourselves to be or accepting the restraints that come to us for the benefit of all. That is the light. And as I said, it's not like there is no change, or no change is this is not a closed-in matrix. Things do come in, but gradual. What comes in needs to fit in. There's another thing, it needs to fit in. There's all possibilities out there. Not everything out there will work in this web. What doesn't work in the web cannot be allowed in if it's destructive to the web. Now, if we are the gateway, if we are the door through which these things can come in, then we really need to start using some discernment in what it is we're letting in, what amount we are letting in, how, and giving it really time to be incorporated, to work its way through the web until there is again a point of balance. Not knowledge. Again, we are causing ripples. We're causing more than ripples, we're causing earthquakes in the matrix, which is something that Saturn, if it was the natural rule of Saturn, would have prevented. We need to go back into the natural frequency. Our eyes need to be opened to the truth that is within us and all around us. we need to have an awakening again, where our eyes are open and we know each other. Not God out there, each other, and that which is around us. Spiritual knowledge of that which we are in. That is the knowledge that will serve us. That is the way to life. That is the way to heaven on earth. What is out there is not a heaven to start with. It's a nightmare. We are seeing it, and we see the influence of the cube, the artificial matrix, the inhumane, the not human matrix that it creates. And we see what the servants of the cube are doing. And that is in no way, shape or form enlightened. So yeah, if we were influenced by the cube, if we are operating in the matrix of the cube, we are in a way the son that left, or they are the sons that left the father's house and ended up eating amongst swine. Time to come home. And as I said, there is a promise in the Bible that we will be welcomed with open arms. We should not be afraid to return home. Home is waiting for us. Anyway, I leave it at that for today, and I talk to you again soon. Bye.